Hey artists, welcome to Miss Casino's art room again. This is project 3. This project's for any level, any grade, super fun. Not a lot of materials needed, just a lot of funky paper that you got lying around, magazines, newspapers, cardboard. Check out the instructions. The material list is on the PDF. There's also a presentation that will get your juices flowing about all different types of landscapes that we can do. Here's an example of a landscape paper collage. Now I just tore the paper, okay, glued it from top to bottom, overlapping, so I have a foreground, a middle ground, and a background. I also added details with stamps that I made myself and stamped with paint. I also cut out little pieces of paper that I had lying around, little scraps, to add some more details. Here we go. I'm gonna show you how to make this. Stay tuned and you can make it right alongside of me. Okay, artists, now that you have checked out the presentation that shows examples of different types of landscapes, and you've read through the instructions in the PDF that you downloaded from Google Classroom, I'm gonna show you exactly how I made my landscape collage and then how I made my own stamp to print on top of the paper of my collage. Okay, so I'm gonna put this aside and show you how I started straight from the beginning. Now you can use any piece of paper you want for your background. This piece should be strong. It could be a color, it could be white, whatever you like. This paper is not a piece that we're gonna rip. This stays as our background. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find some colorful scraps of paper. Right here, I just grabbed a green, a yellow, a kind of grassy lime green. They can be any textures, any shapes. As long as you can rip it, you can use it. So this is gonna be my first step. I'm gonna rip the paper and then I'm gonna place it at the top of my background. So this is looking a little long and it already is ripped in kind of a cool, funky way. So I am going to rip it a little more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Now it's okay if it extends off the sides. We'll give it a little haircut later and I'll show you how. Now we're gonna need a glue stick and later we're gonna need some scissors for this part. For the glue stick, remember when you use a glue stick, we don't roll it all the way up because that messes up the glue stick and then it just falls right out and we can't use it. We're just gonna roll it up a tiny, tiny bit. But we do need, because this paper is pretty thick, we do need a lot of glue. So as you can see, I'm really covering this up with a lot of glue. You see how I got the edges? Okay, so now I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna start at the top of my landscape. The reason I'm starting at the top is so I can layer down on top of this piece and it will look like the landscape is coming forward. This piece is gonna be in the background. It kind of reminds me of some grassy, hilly mountains. Now, again, press hard and count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to make sure this is sticking really well. Now, see, this part doesn't matter to me because I'm gonna cover it up. The next step is I'm gonna make a grassy field. So see how I'm ripping? And I actually really like the way this looks. You can see the shredded edge and that makes it look realistically like a hill. No hill is just cut straight like with scissors. So the next part, I will glue like this. Again, it's okay that it goes off the edges. So I'm gonna apply lots of glue. Here we go. And then I'm going to stick this on like that. Now your landscape could be anything. It could be a volcano. It could be a moon landscape. Later we're gonna add details like trees or spaceships or people or animals. That's not a problem, okay? So the next piece, and then I'm not gonna finish this whole thing because that would take a long time, but I'm gonna make this next piece. See how I'm overlapping? I'm not putting it down here because then it leaves a weird gap. I'm gonna put it over here. I'm gonna do the glue again. There we go. And I'm gonna stick it right on top So it looks like the hills and the valleys are overlapping. This part, once I get to down here, this is my foreground. That means it's in the front. This is my middle ground. That's in the middle. And if I look way back to the mountains, this is my background. In art, if you want it to look dimensional, 3D, you always want to create a foreground, a midground, and a background. So as I work my way around, I'd keep going until I'm all done. And then the next step is to add some details. All right, folks, so as you can see, I have a big bucket of all this scrap paper. Now here's something I made a long time ago and it was extra, so I chopped it up. Here's a paper that's all ripped up, but it has texture. This comes from an old wallpaper book that I found in the deep, dark back of my art closet. Okay, so anything you have lying around, could be newspaper, it could be cuts from magazines, could be anything. You can add detail with these small scraps of paper. I think I'm gonna add onto mine, maybe I'm gonna use something like this to look like water. So let me glue that on. It's actually a pretty big scrap. All right. And as I go building down, I can also add a small little tree maybe, or something else that I like. Ooh, look at this scrap that I found. It actually already looks like a tree to me, so I'm just gonna add that in. I can also use my scissors to cut a shape if I want. Okay, so I'm gonna put this little tree in my landscape like this. I like that a lot. Okay. So now that I have this, and I'm just pretending I've finished the whole thing all the way down. If I want to make it even on the edges, if I flip it, you see how there's extras, but I see the line of my background. So I can give it a little haircut like this. I'm just gonna trim it along the sides, easy peasy like that. And trim it along the sides, easy peasy like that. There we go. Now, I'm ready for my painting. Okay, now you can see I've finished all of the layers all the way down to the bottom. They're coming a little bit unglued, but I can always glue that back a little later. Now it's time for me to add some more painterly details. Now, I'm not gonna use a brush for this. I picked these two colors of paint. You can use acrylic paint, you can use tempera, you can use anything you got in your cabinet, even watercolors, although they might be a little bit lighter and not show up as bright. All right, my paper is pretty absorbent. That's another reason I'm using acrylic tempera paint. Okay, so I just grabbed this piece of foam. You can use cardboard or a thick piece of paper too. Foam is great. Anything that has kind of a slick surface to it is great to make a stamp out of. You could even make it out of a potato with the help of your parent carving a shape. I know, it's crazy. This piece of paper is called a paper palette. It's shiny and slick and dull on the back. This makes it so my paint is easily spread. You can also use a plastic plate or a piece of tin foil or anything else that has a slick, smooth surface. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna use two colors, not get too detailed or crazy, no brush. Put a little bit of that pink on there because I think that'll stand out really nice on this dark green. This is a neon orange color, so let's try that out. Ooh, that's a cool, bright color. Okay, so now I'm gonna cut a shape out of my stamp. I'm gonna keep it simple. You can do shapes like rectangles, squares, triangles, or you could get more complicated and do an animal. I'm gonna start with just a regular triangle. Feels really good to cut this foam. Everybody see this triangle I made? Okay, so all I have to do the stamping is I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna smoosh it around to make sure that I'm spreading the paint all over the whole side of my stamp. Okay, and I could check it. It doesn't look fully covered. I might actually need a little more paint, but I'm really trying to get the edges covered here. And I can always go back and stamp over it if it's not to my liking. Okay, so I think I'm gonna put my first tree right here and push it down really hard. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Again, I'm really pushing on it to get the paint to transfer over to the paper. There we go, it came out really cool. All right, so now I'm gonna make a smaller tree to go next to it. Here's my little guy. I feel like Bob Ross. Look at my little tree. All right, so now I'm just gonna take it, dip it, spread it, because you want it to be flat. You don't want it to be just one big blob of paint. Check it. Yep, that looks covered. I'm gonna overlap my tree. So again, it looks a little dimensional. Dimensional means it's almost 3D looking because there's layers. Let's see. Pulling it up. Ooh, there it is. Now I'm gonna go back and put a little bit more on, and I think I'm just gonna put a little stamp up here on my mountaintop. All right. And there you have it. So you can go nutso with the stamps, go bananas and just stamp all over, or you could just be minimal and do a few. I'm gonna be minimal right now. Minimal means less is better. And if you go and put a lot of stamps on it, that could be very cool too, because then it turns more into a painting with a paper background. All right, folks, thanks again for hanging out with me and making art. I will see you next time. Bye.